Do you need another reason why you should file your taxes? Welcome to Retro Film Review, where we like to take a look back at movies that shaped our generation. Today, we're going to look at 1987's Untouchables, featuring Kevin Costner and Robert De Niro. I'm Thor.
And I'm Ed. But first, like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so that you can get the latest updates on all of our videos. It really helps the channel for you to like and subscribe. All right, so The Untouchables came out in 1987, is a film based on the real live events of Eliot Ness from the Department of Treasury going after Al Capone, who was a huge crime lord in the late 20s, early 30s Chicago time. Oh, yes. All during the Prohibition era when you couldn't drink alcohol, and he was basically trying to funnel lots of booze into the Chicago area.
Oh yes, big time. And the fun thing about that is, if you had, before Prohibition started, if you actually had alcohol, they said you can keep that, but you just can't buy any more. So, like some people might have had 2 beers or something in the fridge. And
how long can you make that stretch?
Some people bought out liquor stores and they said, all right, we're going to keep this.
Right.
But whenever the government tells you you can't do something, people find a way around it.
Right.
So, and that's exactly what Al Capone did. He found a way through corruption, through just organized crime that he had, the crime bosses, the families that he had. He flourished. He was making like $60 million or something,
which is
a year.
huge during that time frame.
Well, yeah, it's like 300 and some odd million a year now, or something close like that, which is unheard of.
Right. But yeah, he had the police, the politicians, the court officials, all in his back pocket.
Yep.
And so the U.S. Treasury then brings in Eliot Ness to take over the plight of taking down Al Capone.
Right.
And initially, people were thinking this is just going to be a showman, just so that they look like they're kind of putting somebody out there so that it looks like the government's trying to do something. But, Eliot takes it very seriously.
Oh, yes.
But his first couple of, bust really turns out to be a bust.
Yeah, they didn't go well because of
the corruption within the police department.
That's right. Everybody was tipping off, hey, they're going to go over here to the left, you go to the right.
Exactly.
We'll
so he has to form his own team that he trusts, which is basically known as the Untouchables. And the name Untouchables, do you know where that comes from?
Yeah.
Go ahead, tell us.
Well, it came from a news reporter who actually, that's what I heard, was it came from a news reporter who was covering the story. And basically when they had a couple of successful things, they're like, these guys are untouchable. And so what Eliot Ness said, well, you know what? We're going to use that to our advantage. Instead of going, hey, I'm Eliot Ness and this is Bob Smith and that's Joe Bob over there, we're the Untouchables. So the articles didn't come out and say Eliot Ness and Joe Bob and all that did this. They said the Untouchables did this. So they had, at first, some anonymity on who there was. Is that what you heard too? Or?
Well, I'd heard that as well, but but another aspect of that was Al Capone actually, unlike this movie, had said that because he knew what type of reign of terror would come down if he actually had one of the members of the Untouchables killed.
Oh, okay.
That he actually put out a decree to his people that they be untouched, so that they not be killed.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and so now everybody else is,
fair game.
Fair game. But these guys, but like I said, unlike the movie where 2 members of the Untouchables get killed.
Right.
But in real life, that didn't happen.
Well, and also in the movie, you've got, this is like the Untouchables, these 4 guys here. It was really a squad of 10 men.
Okay.
But for Hollywood, it's kind of awkward to put 10 guys on the screen and then you're following 10 different stories. It's a lot easier to have 4 main characters.
It's about like Avengers Endgame, but taking place in Prohibition, Chicago. Too many characters.
Prohibition never worked. Well, actually, there's still some like dry counties
in North Carolina.
And, where we're at, you can't buy certain alcohol on Sundays and things like that.
Southern blue laws.
Well, they've been relaxed, but that's all right.
So, but Elliot forms his little group, and then they basically start taking down certain areas, and then which leads to, as you talked about at the beginning, with them really realizing that the only way they can kind of take him down is the not filing your taxes.
Which is crazy, because Kevin Costner, who plays Elliot Ness, wanted to get him on the murders, wanted to get him on the crimes, like catching him running the liquor and things like that. And this guy here was like, no, look at here. He didn't file back in 1927. And Elliot Ness is like, who cares? No. He murdered this guy. And he's like, but he didn't file his taxes.
That's the accountant talking.
But we can get him on that. And so finally, eventually, after some of this stuff, the guy is bringing it back up. They're on an airplane flying. And he's like, look, all these businesses are connected. And they're not filing stuff. If we can put the dots together. And finally, Elliot Ness is like, in the movie, it's like, all right, how do we do that then? How do we connect it? Well, I don't know. All right, well, let's work that out.
No.
But, sometimes solving crimes isn't all the glamorous stuff that you do see on TV. It is, look at, and now some of the TV shows now, they do forensic art and stuff like that, which used to always be behind the scenes. But it's such a vital part of it. And that's basically what the accountant was,
right.
The forensic artist kind of thing, where he's looking through the books and going, okay, you detail all this other stuff, and now we've got you for everything. Which it never made sense to me why criminals keep such good record keeping. I guess it's to make sure everybody's paying them back.
Probably so.
But when you sit there and go, I gave $1 million to Judge so and so and $50,000 to the police chief. It's like,
yeah, it's probably also so they have records so that they can kind of keep holding these people accountable for that they need in their back pocket.
Yeah, that's true.
So let's talk about this. Was Kevin Costner's really first major turn as a starring role. He had been in a lot of stuff before, but mainly supporting roles. And even so much as being in a coffin as a dead guy in The Big Chill.
He was the Chill.
Right, exactly. There was a lot of Hollywood that was in line to be this role of Elliot Ness.
Tell me.
Everybody from John Voight to Bruce Willis to Don Johnson, like every major male star was in line for this. And I don't know if they just didn't want it or not, but they ended up choosing Kevin Costner, which I don't think the studio was, he's not that big of a leading guy, and Lord knows, he turned out to be a huge star.
Oh yeah.
But he had a kind of this year of 87 had a 1-2 punch of this movie came out in the summer, and then another movie, No Way Out, that you've never seen, is a really good political drama. Yeah. That came out about 2 months later.
Who's interested in politics?
I don't know. Which also featured Sean Young, which is in our last retro film review of Stripes. But I digress. So, but that 1-2 punch of this really kind of catapulted Kevin Costner's career. Yeah. Whereas the next year he went and did Bull Durham, and the following year was Field of Dreams, and the next year was Dances with Wolves, and the next year was Robin Hood. He just took off.
But yeah, and also his counterpart, the one he's going, his nemesis, is played by Robert De Niro, who is definitely well known at this point.
Yes, and had also won an Academy Award for playing another mobster with Vito Corleone in The Godfather 2. And so, but yeah, as well as
he plays a mobster, gangster, whatever, in a lot of different movies. The one that immediately comes to my mind though is Casino.
Right.
Him. So, but yeah, he fits the part. He does a great job. He's a great actor. So.
Oh yeah. Well, you feel the power that Al Capone has, and how people just bow down to whatever his whim is. Mm-hmm. The one scene in the movie where they have everybody, all his associates in the round table.
Oh yes.
Where he picks up the baseball bat, and you just think he's doing a little pep talk, about teamwork, and he's really alluding to the fact that he has a member of his team that is not on his team, and then beats the living crap out of him with the baseball bat. But
he kills him.
He does. But
you know who that guy was, right?
No.
The raid on whenever Elliot Ness was having those busts go wrong, those raids go wrong, and then Malone, who was played by Sean Connery, says, "All right, do you really want to do something? How far are you willing to go? Let's go right now." And he grabs the shotguns, and they go to the post office, and behind in the back warehouse was all the liquor.
Yeah,
they were doing that, and the guy in charge walks up and says, "Oh, you can't do that." Blah,
that
blah.
was the guy.
That was the guy. So the guy in charge was one of Capone's men. So he was seated at the round table. We're talking about at least 20, 25 guys at this table.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the powerhouse. So he was at that table, and so and
I didn't put
and
that
Al Capone
together.
in the movie. I don't know if that really happened or not.
It did.
Oh, it did.
And it actually, it didn't happen in Chicago. It happened in Illinois, but there was actually 3 people that he executed instead of just the one.
I'm not saying it's okay. So when I say this, know that basis. But the best way to keep everybody else in line is to make an example of somebody else.
Right.
Well, I mean, even at work, if people aren't doing something,
you couldn't just take away his phone.
I changed the Wi-Fi password. Come on, Al. Chucks. Shucks. Chucks. So anyway, I didn't realize that, because some of it is based on real life events. So you don't know when they're taking artistic license and stuff like that. So I didn't know that actually happened. I mean, so it did happen, just in a different setting. So that's
So
and the other people at the table in the movie just sat there.
I mean, what else are you going to do?
Blood splattered all over them. They're like,
Yeah. So, and then the next person really that to kind of talk about is Sean Connery, who won an Academy Award for his supporting role in this as Malone. Malone was a beat cop, which I'm assuming he was higher up in the force, and then basically kind of, I don't know, either got demoted or kind of took that, but that
I think he took that to stay alive, because he wasn't going to take the money, and be corrupted. So he decided, because he even said to Elliot Ness, when Elliot's like, "I want you on my team," and he's like, "Nope. I wish you'd have came to me 10 years ago and 20 pounds lighter."
Yeah.
And he said, "But, I just think this is the best thing for me to survive."
Yeah.
It's like he's going to walk the patrol and handle what's in his area, what he sees, and he doesn't have to worry about busting down doors and going after, gang members and stuff like that, or rather kill you than shake your hand. So my favorite kind of speech from him though is at the church, where it's like, they bring a knife to a gunfight, or a knife to a fight, you bring a gun. Yeah.
He sends one of your members to the hospital, you send his to the morgue. It's it's the same Chicago way.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing I just said about if you're having an organization, make an example. You beat one of my guys up, well, one of your guys is dead. What are you going to do now? Because I can escalate this further, and I have the entire U.S. government on my side.
No. Well, and that just really pushed a point, and I don't know how much it was in real life, but for the movie purposes, about how far Elliot had to go beyond his comfort zone and what he felt legally was right to do what he needed to do to get to get Capone.
Yeah.
I
don't know. But I do know, and there's a scene in the movie where he was bribed, or tried to be bribed.
Right.
He wasn't bribed. Where they show, I don't know if you've seen it recently, the guy comes in, he's a alderman or something, and he throws the envelope down on the, oops, but actually he was. The guy brought $2,000, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in today's money, it was like $30,000 to $32,000.
Yeah.
And said, "Here, take this. We're going to give you $2,000 every week for you basically to shut up and kind of look the other way. And again, that equates to like $1.5 million for the year. So you could easily see how some of these politicians, how these different people,
Right.
it doesn't matter, it has to be politicians, I'm not picking on any organization or group, but how an individual could sit there who's struggling, needing some money, and someone says, look, I'll give you $1.5 million that you just don't report anything.
Right.
How many people would be like, okay, going to Disney World? Well, not at that time, they wouldn't. They'd actually probably go to Cuba and get some cigars.
I might do that. So the next member of our team, we got Andy Garcia.
Yep, playing George Stone.
George Stone, who was a Cuban actor playing an Italian immigrant.
Well, Sean Connery was Scottish, playing an Irishman.
Using his natural Scottish accent. I always liked Andy Garcia's character. I like George Stone. I thought he was, I don't know, just he just felt true. Like his character was great, and he was in there, not going to be had or whatnot.
No, and then they show that whenever they try to recruit him for that. And again, I don't know how they recruited in real life, but in the movie it's really good. They start talking down to him, and oh, you changed your name from the original name, and then they call him a derogatory term.
Right. Yeah.
So he's ready to fight and prove that he's willing to do whatever, even to the superiors, that he stands for justice for for himself and for others. And they're like, yeah, I like this guy. Because he had a sidearm.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, that was like a concealed weapon because he was on the firing range in the movie, and he's.
And then he
It was
pulls
so
one out.
hilarious. All the other officers are practicing. They're standing in their position, and all of a sudden he's like standing to the side, and shooting to the side. So then he puts his gun down, and they call him a derogatory name, about to swing, and he pulls the other gun from nowhere. He's like, I like this guy.
There you go. What are some of your favorite scenes?
I like that scene, actually. I like when they're on the bridge going with the Canadian Mounties, and they're, if you haven't seen the movie, or if you have seen it, it's whenever the bridge that's going between the two countries. So basically you have an international crime. They're having Canadian whiskey being brought, obviously from Canada, and you have Al Capone's guys on this side.
At the border.
They're meeting at the border, but basically on the bridge, so they're kind of in no man's land. And so they were going to, once the exchange was made, the Canadians were going to come in and basically get the Canadians.
Right.
And Al Capone, his guys, he wasn't there, was going to got
Yeah.
by Mr. Fed. But it was a good scene for me because the little accountant guy, Charles, what was his name in the movie though?
I don't know.
But anyway, so this guy over here that you're seeing, he was real kind of timid, nerdy, wormy, whatever you want to call it. Timid probably to be the best thing, and he didn't want to get involved with a lot of stuff. He wanted to look at the books and do everything. But anyway, this is a growing spot for him. This is his character development where he just goes from this point to here. And whenever Stone gets shot,
balls to the wall, getting shooting everybody.
He's like, oh, I got my gun or whatever. And all of a sudden, Stone, his best friend or whatever, gets shot in the shoulder, but he doesn't know that. He just sees him go down the cliff. And so he's like, he's like Rambo all of a sudden.
It's like flip the switch and
boom. And of course, all these gangsters apparently can't shoot. I mean, the guy's like walking up to him and the guy's like shooting around him. It's like, really?
They're like stormtroopers. They can't hit anything.
And then, of course, Elliot Ness gets underneath the car as it was about to go over him and kill him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just, the stuff leading up to it is kind of boring, but then the action is probably my favorite scene. And that, and whenever he finally finds the guy who killed Malone, and they're on top of the roof, and he goes, Ness catches the guy, Nito, and says, Nito says, like, your friend, he screamed like a dying pig or a squealing pig.
Yeah.
And Kevin Costner, Ness was like, what did you just say? And they're on the roof. And this, I don't know, 20-story high-rise or something. He goes, he screamed like a squealing pig or whatever, like when he died. And he goes, pushes him off the building, goes, did he sound like that? Ah!
Yeah, I like the the retribution for that.
But what shows is when Sean Connery said before, how far are you willing to go? Because once you cross the line, you can't go back.
Well, because Frank was saying that I'm let go. If you bring me down, arrest me, I'll be free tomorrow.
Yeah, I want you to be there when I beat this rap.
Yeah.
That bothered him. But whenever he said, your friend screamed like a squealing pig when he died, that just pushed him over the edge.
But the problem is, you had such a great scene, and then it was almost ruined by a cheesy green screen fall.
Oh yeah,
where he's just like and I don't know. It's just they could have just cut that part out and just showed him falling down, and it would have been fine. But I don't know why.
Yeah, you could have done the push. He starts to scream. Did he sound like that? And the next thing, boom, right in the car.
Right. You didn't need to see that little insert shot of him dangling from a wire behind a projection screen of sky. I don't know. Like I said, that was my one beef with the movie. And you
can't get. I believe for Christmas we're going to do Die Hard or something. So we'll talk about different screams like that, but you can't get an accurate scream, when you're just pretending. That's not like a real life.
Right.
I'm scared.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about Die Hard when we get to that.
So my favorite one is the train station.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm telling you. And I just like the way that it was all set up. Now it's all in slow motion, and you've got this lullaby music kind of going over it, which kind of gives it an eerie feeling to it. But just the execution and the way that all the tension of you got the baby carriage slowly going down.
You hear each step.
Yeah.
With that sound.
How it stays upright the whole time, I'll never know. But the
counterbalance.
But you've got the sailors in a crossfire and who are trying to help save the baby, and they get shot, and it's just
go Navy.
I think it's just the tension and execution is just done really well, which I think gives a credence to Brian DePalma, who directed the film. Mm-hmm. He has a very stylized way of setting up action set pieces, and I think that's just kind of good if you go back to some of his earlier films. And he went on to go do the first Mission Impossible film. That I think that he's really good director in trying to set up that stylization.
Yeah. Well, and they foreshadowed basically the last killing in that scene when Stone killed the one guy holding the bookkeeper.
Right.
Because when they went to recruit him, they were at the shooting range. And the instructor was like, he's our best. He's the best one we've had come through. He an ace shot or whatever he says. So of course, as he's laying there on the ground and he's pointing the gun at the guy, and Elliot Ness is like, "You got him?" He's like, "I got him." He puts his gun away and go ahead.
Yeah.
Put it right through his mouth as he's two.
Yeah.
Sorry if you haven't seen it. I don't know what to tell you.
The good guys win.
Well, if you. Yeah, it's not always in the movies that they win, but this is based on a true story. So that
right
that the Treasury Department wins.
All right, final thoughts.
I think this movie stands up. We talk about it, movie stand up the test of time. This definitely does. If you like to study history, you'll really like this movie. If you just like action and drama, and based on some of the nuances on how they actually go about fighting a crime. Again, it's not just all we're going to catch them right in the act and we're going to bust them. We're going to have a shootout. Sometimes it is that. It's that little miscellaneous stuff, that little stuff that'll trip you up as a criminal that'll get you caught.
Yeah.
So there's so many nuances that make this movie interesting and still relevant today, because crime still happens today. It happened before this time. It happened during that time, and it happens after, and it'll happen tomorrow. So it's still relevant. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree with you, and I think like you kind of said this. I think that it's a good, if you're interested in history, this is a great movie to kind of get you into this period, just to kind of spur on your knowledge of looking forward and kind of doing a deep dive into this. But yeah, no, I mean it does hold up, and just to kind of see how police work was done back at the early 20th century where you don't have cell phones and you don't have computers and you don't have all this stuff, and how you had to go through and basically use your mind and clues, then be a great detective to try to solve these crimes. I think it's pretty fascinating.
Yes. And one part I liked is whenever talking about being a good cop and using your skills, is Malone did a good job, Sean Connery, of a beat cop. A beat cop walks the same beat, same streets and all that, and they know the people there. They know their habits, who they are, so they know when something's out of place. So using those same police skills, come into effect. So.
All right. So what skills do you have? Your skills should be like and subscribe. So we appreciate you coming in. You like that segue there. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Retro Film Review.
Bye.